What's up, Met fans? Welcome back. Talkin Mets with Rob. How's everybody doing? In today's video, guys, we have a very special guest, and I'm so glad we were able to do a collaboration together on Talkin Mets with Rob. JOE DEMAYO is going to join us to talk about his new top 10 prospect list of 2022 and break down each and every prospect on that top 10 list. Also, I'm going to get Joe's opinion on one prospect from 11 through 20 that he thinks can soon break the top 10 list in the Mets farm system. Stick around to the end of the video, guys. You're going to get two opinions regarding Mark Vientos and Ronny Mauricio from JOE DEMAYO that I think you would want to listen to and see what he talks about those two players that I believe is very interesting to me and a lot of Met fans watching the channel. Before we bring Joe in, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you're enjoying my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. All right, Met fans, let's bring in JOE DEMAYO and talk Mets prospects. All right, Mets fans, so we got a special guest here on Talkin Mets with Rob, SNY Writer, SNY.TV. If you want to know anything about Mets prospects, the Mets minor league players, anything, you go right to Joe. No doubt about it. He knows everything you need to know about the prospects in the Mets farm system. And the podcast, That's So Mets podcast, is an excellent listen. I listen to it all the time, Joe. It's great. How are you, man? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for on the channel, buddy.
I'm doing great, Rob. How are you?
Good. All right, so we're going to get started with, we're going to go 10 through 1. So number 10 on the list, right-handed pitcher, Robert Dominguez, hard-throwing right-hander. So give me your opinion about him, and what do you think about him, Joe?
Yeah, Dominguez is a high upside right-handed pitcher that the Mets signed as international free agent for a lesser than normal bonus for guys that typically end up getting ranked really highly. He's not $1 million signing bonus guy. In fact, I think he got just over $100,000, which $100,000 is pretty sweet, but not quite $2 million. But he's a guy that when the Mets were scouting him, he was throwing 94 to 95, and then they brought him into their facility, started doing some mechanical tweaks to him, and now he'll touch 99. So there's a big time fastball there. Breaking ball, he has a feel for it. He needs a lot of work on his command, needs a third pitch. So there's a lot of upside there, but the range of outcomes is very wide. It's a guy that could fall off the map, or it could be a guy that's a potential, number 2, number 3 starter if everything goes perfectly.
Well, let's hope everything goes perfect for this guy. Maybe move up the list in a year or so. All right, so number 9 on the list, another right-handed pitcher, Calvin Ziegler. I actually he was drafted this year in 2021.
Yep.
So what do you think about him? Do you like him? I know he throws hard. So give us a little more information about Ziegler.
Yeah, Ziegler was the Mets' second-round pick and turns out to be the highest pick because they failed to sign Kumar Rocker, their first-round pick, which is why they'll have 2 first-round picks in the 2022 MLB Draft. But Ziegler's a guy that, at the time, some people thought was a little bit of a reach and that it was more of a money-saving move because they had to go over slot for Rocker. But talking to people with the Mets, they thought Ziegler was one of the best high school right-handers that they saw in the nation regardless. So they thought he was very worth the pick. And others in baseball certainly said he wouldn't have made it to their third pick. So did they draft him maybe a couple slots earlier than what some may have? Sure. But they like the player. And I know that they talked him in a similar vein to a guy like Simeon Woods Richardson, who they drafted in the second round a couple of years ago. He was the second prospect in the Marcus Stroman trade when they got him from Toronto. And, it's just an athlete on the mound. He'll touch 97 or so right now. Spin rate, spin efficiency is his game. He's got a good feel for a breaking ball. Changeup really lacking, command lacking. But this is a kind of a raw athlete, which is really the mode that the Mets are trying to move to in their pitching prospects, is get athletes on the mound, not just big, burly guys that throw hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 8 on your list, we've seen him in the majors briefly, Khalil Lee, outfielder. I actually like his defense, and he seems like he has a lot of speed. But again, his bat didn't really show in the majors. But when he went back to the minors, he figured it out his offense. So, what do you think about him?
I think Lee's a little underappreciated by Mets fans because obviously you saw whatever it was, 12 games or whatever, and he struck out like all the time. So I understand why Mets fans don't exactly buy into any positivity around Khalil Lee, but he's a guy that has, like you said, good defensive prowess. He can play all three outfield positions. He has a very strong throwing arm. That's probably his best tool. He has above average raw power, which he hasn't tapped into enough in game yet, but you certainly saw some of it when he went down to AAA. There is contact issues. Does strike out a lot. There's no question that's a part of his game. But he draws walks. He led the AAA league in on base percentage, and then in advance that, weighted runs created, WRC plus. So he's a guy that I think has more upside than Mets fans may know or frankly want to believe. But I think he's a guy that on opening day could compete to be the fourth outfielder if they don't go and make an addition in that role. Otherwise, he could go back to AAA, be more depth, and he definitely has everyday outfielder upside if he's able to improve his contact rate.
Yeah, maybe that's the way. Maybe he can be a replacement for Michael Conforto in a year or two. If the Mets don't seem like they're gonna not bring back Michael Conforto, yeah. I would hope to see Khalil Lee up there, maybe as a fourth outfielder, as you said. So number 7 on the list, outfielder Alex Ramirez. You said on SNY that you can see him as a 5-tool player. So what do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's your best shot. So in the system, he's the only prospect in the system right now that shows at least some semblance of all 5 tools. It doesn't mean he has 5 elite tools, yeah. But he shows some ability to hit contact. He shows some ability to hit for power. He can run. He can play center field. He can throw. He's really a tool shed. And unlike Dominguez, who we talked about a couple minutes ago, this was a big signing bonus. This was a guy that signed for just over $2 million 2 years ago when the Mets signed him. And he was their top international free agent get for that signing period. And, he has as much upside as probably anyone in the system. He's just obviously much more raw than some of the guys that we'll talk about here when we get closer to the top of the list. But Ramirez is a guy that this time next year, he could be talked about in a similar light as a Ronny Mauricio. I don't think that's really crazy. So, just as far as caliber prospect, very different players. But, yeah, big fan of Ramirez and think better days are to come for him.
Nice to hear about that. All right, so when we're going a little closer up to the top here with number 6, another right-handed pitcher, Matt Allen. Met fans talked about him a lot when they drafted him. He was high as number 2, as you said on SNY when you wrote about him. Since, the Tommy John surgery, he hasn't pitched a lot, but what do you expect from him? And you think he can be an ace of the staff shortly?
I mean, he still has number 2 starter upside, but there's just a lot of things he has to answer to. Right now, the expectation from the Mets is they're hoping he'll pitch in July of this year because he got Tommy John this past May. And recovery is typically 14, 16 months, kind of depends on the person. But to me, Allen has upside, like I said, to be as high as probably the number 2 prospect in the system. He has maybe not ace potential, but front type of the rotation potential. The only issue is he's thrown 10 professional innings, and he's going to go almost close to 3 full years between pitching, just because he was drafted in 2019, only pitched a little bit that summer, which is common, had the COVID season where there was no minor league baseball in 2020, and then 2021, he got Tommy John before the minor league season started. So he missed that season, and he's going to miss most of the 2022 season. And if there's any slight setback, he misses the whole 2022 season too. So there's going to be a big gap between pitching. The talent's there, but I'm just choosing guys that have maybe a little more certainty just because they're pitching now or hitting. Yeah. So that's why Allen dropped.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But, I do like him. Hopefully he can get some innings this year, and then that would be great for him so we can see what he can do and maybe be potential, number 2.
Going back to the 2019 draft, I cover the draft as well for SNY and on the podcast and everything. And I had Matt Allen ranked higher as a draft prospect than I did Brett Beatty, and that took Beatty in the first round, and Allen fell to the third due to his signing bonus demands, but they were able to work that out. So I'm as big a Matt Allen fan as you're going to find, but I'm just at the point that he has to show it. He has to get back on the mound.
Hopefully he gets healthy quick so he can show it. All right, so number 5 on the list, another right-handed pitcher, JT Ginn, Mississippi State product. Another one that had Tommy John surgery when he was in college in his final year. So what can you talk about Ginn?
Yeah, I mean, Ginn's one of a few Mississippi State Bulldogs in the Mets organization. They also have outfielder Jake Mangum, who I ranked inside the top 20, and right-handed pitcher Cole Gordon. So he's actually the third Mississippi Bulldog. Their area scout is a Bulldog too, so there's some Bulldogs in the Mets organization. Yeah, Ginn's a guy that had Tommy John in March or April of his last year at Mississippi State. He was a first-round pick out of high school by the Dodgers, opted not to sign, go to college, falls to the second round because of the injury with the Mets. Mets scoop him up, pay him over slot, get him to sign. He does his rehab, ends up pitching most this season with High A Brooklyn. Started in Low A St. Lucie, got his feet wet, got up to Brooklyn, and this was just a year of development for him, where his numbers turned out to be just fine, but it was really just building his arm strength back up, getting the innings back under his belt, and working on building his velocity back up. Because when he's on, he has a sinker, turbo sink. It's like a bowling ball that'll touch 97, 98 miles an hour. Wipeout slider, developing changeup, workhorse on the mound, dog kind of guy. So big fan of what JT brings. And at the end of the season, his velocity was getting close to normal. He was touching 95, 96. So he's pretty much all the way back. I expect him to start next season in Double-A. And, I'm interested to see kind of how he handles that huge test. But he has potential to be a mid-rotation starter for sure.
Yeah, Mets got a lot of right-handed pitchers ready to go in a couple of years if everybody remains healthy. That's for sure.
Hey,
all right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to number 4. Met fans heard a lot about him, the raw power that Mark Vientos has at number 4. Utility, third base, first base, left field, plays all over the place. What can you talk about Vientos, and do you see him up in the big leagues this year?
I do. So he got added to the 40-man roster this winter. So he had to get protected from the Rule 5 draft, which may or may not happen after a lockout. Kind of depends how that all works out. But they added him to the 40-man, so that makes him a call away. He reached AAA Syracuse this year, so he had a massive year. Hit 25 or 26 home runs, I kind of forget, but hit a lot of home runs, a lot of doubles, really made big strides in his entire offensive game from the 2019 season, where I looked at Vientos as a guy with raw power, kind of lacked contact skills, kind of lacked pitch recognition skills, but if he hit it, he hit it. This year, he kind of put the whole package together offensively. Hit for more contact. Still strikes out, but part of the game. But he drew some more walks, and the power was there. Power to all fields. He's a 25 home run bat. I think has that kind of written all over him, and the versatility I think is a good thing. Part of it is they're not exactly entirely sure where he plays best. So they're kind of figuring that out. And, we'll talk about another third baseman shortly that has a better shot to stick at third base than Vientos. But they had them both in Double-A Binghamton last year for a period of time. And they kind of flip-flopped. One would play left, the other would play third, and they would just go back and forth, just trying to increase their versatility. So just figuring out where you put Vientos is honestly my biggest question about him. I think he's going to hit. It's just a matter of finding the right spot for him. Maybe it's a DH down the road. But at the younger ages, you want to try to find a place where he could stand either in the dirt or in the grass.
Yeah, the Mets seem to have that problem. Dominic Smith, J.D. Davis, they don't know where these guys can play, play defense at all.
Right.
The DH, is only one spot. Hopefully the DH will come, happen this year, and we'll see what happens with a lot of these guys. But Vientos, big time power. I can see him being a DH if he can, continue to be as good as he was last year.
Sure.
All right, guys. So number 3 on the list, Yeah, everybody likes him. He's should be a phenom. Hopefully, shortstop Ronny Mauricio. I've said it on my channel lately. The Mets seem to not want to move him around to second base. I thought they should have moved him to second base once they signed Lindor. I feel like he's blocked at short, and he's most likely going to be blocked at third base with Beatty, Vientos, and at the moment Escobar. I kind of wonder what the Mets are going to do. Are they going to think about using him as an asset as in a trade, or keep him around and move him to second base at some point? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when it comes to player development, you really don't think about the major league team until they reach at least Double A. When you're in the low minors, you play the position you're most comfortable with, so that way you can develop offensively. The last thing you want to do is put too much on a young player's plate in Single A while he's trying to figure out hitting professional pitching. At the same time, he'll have in his head, "Well, I have to go play a position that I don't know how to play." So it's just part of common development. I think it's obvious the Mets have a shortstop for quite a long time. So Mauricio's long-term home is clearly not at shortstop, if he stays in the organization long-term. Second base certainly could be an option. I know that I've heard third base is probably one of his better projected positions. He's kind of a bigger guy. But they supposedly will try him in the outfield this spring some as well. Okay. So you might see some left field reps, some center field reps, and just kind of, I think now that he'll be in Double A in 2022, you'll see him, become more versatile, try different positions, and they'll try to, they'll figure out his long-term defensive home kind of at that level. As far as the bat goes, big time power year, hit over 20 home runs, hit doubles. The power showed up. I still have issues with the contact and with the pitch recognition skills. But if he's able to grow in those facets, obviously, like you said, has a chance to be an impact player at the major league level. Certainly, could be a trade option. There's no question that even if it's not this offseason, it could be at the trade deadline. It could be next offseason. But maybe down the road he ends up traded away. But I think for now they're going to continue to develop him and just see where the pieces fall. The reality is you don't want to bank. We're going to be talking about these prospects and what their potential is, but you don't want to bank on any individual one working out, because who knows? Maybe Mark Vientos can't find a position and struggles, or these things work themselves out. Where there's number one overall prospects in baseball that don't end up really good players. So it's kind of an inexact science. So keep as many prospects as you can and kind of let the pieces fall where they may. And if it becomes such an ideal situation that everybody's awesome and found the position, then obviously you're in a great spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analysis on Mauricio. There's so many options with him, and now you said he might play outfield. That would be interesting. That'd be a good spot for him, most likely. That, at least at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, gives you options. Versatility is not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to go to number 2 on the list. He brought it up earlier. Brett Beatty, third base, left field, most likely probably be the third baseman if everything works out. Obviously, he showed in, I believe, the Arizona Fall League what he can do, and he looks really good. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets bring him up this year or definitely in 2023. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's the best pure hitter in the organization. I mean, this is high contact ability, great pitch recognition, gap to gap power. I think there's more home run power in his bat. They made some alterations to his swing that I think will lead to some more loft, and you'll see some more home run numbers from Beatty in 2022. But this is a big, strong kid that scouts believe should stick fine at third base. He's probably not going to win you a Gold Glove there ever. But he should be able to play the position. He's not going to be kicking the ball around, and he has a real arm. Dating back to high school, he did pitch a little bit, which is kind of just, hey, you're one of the best players on the team. Do everything you can, and he touched 94 or 95 on the mound, so there's arm strength there, so he can make the throws from third base. He just, to me, it's just get some more minor league time in. But as far as development of his game, I think he's incredibly polished, not far away from the majors. I wrote in that article that I put his ETA of 2022.
22.
So
yeah.
I have the thoughts that he will make his big league debut at some point this summer, and we'll see if that comes to fruition. But like you said, maybe they just end up not needing to call him up, and he waits out until 2023. That's possible too. But exciting prospect, above average regular, written all over him, potential for more.
Yeah, that'd be good. If the Mets are good enough this year, they don't have to worry about bringing him up, make him develop better, and he'll be just as good, just as better in 2023 for us. That's for sure. All right, so we get into the number one, the phenom catcher, Francisco Alvarez. So much talk about him. There was a little, I believe SNY had it about, or it might have been you, about him receiving the ball. That might be a little bit of an issue, but he's still very young.
Yeah.
He also, he can hit. We know that. What do you see? Do you see him as, I kind of like put him as a Gary Sanchez in receiving the ball, or is he not that bad, or is he better than Gary Sanchez in that case?
Gary Sanchez can't play catcher, so I think Francisco Alvarez can. He just, and when I comment on receiving and ability to block balls, like he's 19 years old, going to be in Double-A, so this is a young player who has outperformed even my expectations, and I always thought he was a stud. So he's outperformed even my expectations. So there's nothing bad I could say about Alvarez's work ethic. Like you said, the bat, I mean, it's 70 grade power, which for those that don't know the 20/80 scale, 70 grade is like 30 plus home runs. Mm-hmm. He hit home runs to the Cyclone roller coaster out there at Coney Island.
Wow.
Like when he hits home runs, he hits home runs. High exit velocity, power to all fields. Right now does need a little work with hitting breaking balls, so pitch recognition is not at Brett Beatty's level, but it's there. But we got to pick holes in these guys. I'm not here to tell you everything's perfect. So he still needs a little work with identifying on breaking pitches, and then behind the plate, like I said, still needs work receiving the ball, and that it's not like he's missing the ball, but just needs work on framing, receiving, just the whole general process back there. The arm is plus, so he can throw. I think I may have tweeted out a video last week or something of him throwing, and it's a great arm with good pop time. So I think he's going to be fine behind the plate. Like I said, he may not win you Gold Gloves. He may not be the best defensive catcher in baseball, but I also don't think it's Gary Sanchez bad back there. So super exciting prospect. All-star potential, kind of written all over him.
Great. So that's our top 10, guys. Joe gave great analysis on each of the top 10. I'm going to ask you one question, Joe, regarding 11 through 20. What's one prospect, 11 through 20, that you can see jump up in the top 10, or that you really, really like, that you think can easily be in the top 10, say, next year?
I'll go all the way down to number 20, and right-hand pitcher Joel Diaz, who I had sneak on to, right at the back end of my list. He had a massive year in the Dominican Summer League, posted an ERA of 0.54, basically was untouchable. And for a 17-year-old arm, he's a strike thrower, which is very uncommon. The younger guys like that tend to be more throwers than pitchers, where they're not throwing strikes, but they just throw the ball really hard and hope it goes kind of near the plate enough that people will swing at it. It's clear that Diaz has a plan. He sits more low 90s right now, but he's touched 95 or 96 or so. So the fastball velocity, I think, will grow as he matures physically. Has a really good changeup, feel for a breaking ball, and like I said, advanced command for his age. I know there's other outlets that may have ranked him higher than this. I'm not quite there yet, but I think Joel Diaz is a guy that you could look at this time next year, and maybe it's top 10, or with all the draft picks coming, maybe it's not, but I think you could see a big jump from him in the 2022 season.
All right, that's great. Joel Diaz. Joe said it first, so if you see him in the top 10 next year, Joe said it first. All right, so one guy that I actually like from the in the 11 through 20 is Jalen Palmer. I actually really like him. I've seen him at Holy Cross, actually. Local product.
Yeah.
He's very versatile. 30 stolen bases, I believe, last year, and between Low A St. Lucie and High A Brooklyn. What do you think about Jalen Palmer? Do you think he'll be cracking the top 10 soon?
he's got a lot of work to go on the offensive side of the game. Contact ability, pitch recognition. He's very raw, but he's a fantastic athlete, arguably the best athlete in the organization. Really good athlete that can play all over the diamond, like you said, steals bases. If he's able to make contact, like I don't even need him to develop much power, but if he could just more consistently make contact, he looks to me like a utility guy, a guy that you could have on your bench that steals bags, can go and play basically wherever you want him to. He has the ability to play everywhere. So it's an exciting prospect. He's got a lot to work on in his offensive side of the game. So, remains to be seen if he'll end up a top 10 guy, but I think he's certainly someone that merits watching.
Great. All right, guys. So that's our Joe with all his analysis on the top prospects, what he thinks and what I think of them. So one last question before I let you go, Joe. The manager of the Mets. Obviously, there's 3 final candidates: Quacharo, Espada, and Showalter. Who do you like and who do you want?
Oh, okay. I think they're all actually really good candidates. Like, I don't feel like the list. I don't think it's painfully obvious who they should hire from the list. Everyone's gonna have opinions. There's a lot of Buck Showalter fans out there. I've seen it all over Twitter. There's just as many people that are like anybody but Buck Showalter. So the opinions are certainly out there. I think they're all really good candidates. It kind of depends what you're looking for. Buck would be a stabilizing presence. He'd be the adult in the room. Obviously, the clubhouse and everything didn't work so well in 2021. There was obviously, you had the raccoon and a whole mess of issues that maybe a grown up like Showalter would have nipped in the butt, and it would have been much less of a story. So I think that's kind of your case for Showalter, is the adult in the room that's done it before, doesn't have to learn on the job. But I'm always going to be a sucker for finding the next great manager. Like, I think a guy like Joe Espada, to me, he's the top of my list. I think he did a lot more in Houston than people realize. Dusty Baker, the manager there, really just managed the people in the locker room. And Espada was doing all the game planning, the in-game strategy, everything. And he's been doing it for a while and was with AJ Hinch and now with Dusty Baker. So he's learned from some really good managers. So I think he's in prime position to be a very good manager. It just feels to me like it's Buck's job to lose. That's just the feeling that we get. Yeah. So I'm fine if they hire Buck Showalter. I'm not a Buck hater by any means. I'm always thinking long term. I mean, look, I cover prospects, so I'm always he's going to be the good manager for a long time. I'm not so much concerned about a manager who's going to come and 2022 is going to be his moment. So it's just kind of a perspective, whatever you have. But to me, I like Espada, and ultimately, what it comes down to is they could hire Espada, they could hire Quacharo, they could hire Showalter, they could hire you or me. If the players don't perform, it don't matter who's sitting on the bench and filling out the lineup card. The managers can't make you perform. So
exactly,
the Max Scherzers, the Starling Martes, the Mark Cannas, the Eduardo Escobars, whoever else they bring in, those people are going to have a significantly bigger impact as to whether the Mets are good in 2022 than it doesn't matter what manager they hire. So they need the players. They need the players to perform, and it seems like that search is going to come to a head here in the coming days. So this will end up being old very quick. And my money would be that they hire Buck Showalter. But if you were asking me to pick, I'd pick Joe Espada.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Showalter. I want Showalter. I think we need a leader, but Espada is definitely a close number 2 for sure. Yeah. Joe, thank you so much once again, guys. If you want to follow him on Twitter, PSL to Flushing. Follow him on Twitter. Check him out on SNY.TV. Writer, MLB Draft, minor leagues, Mets, anything you need to know. Joe is your guy. Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on to the channel, and hopefully you do this again during the season.
Yeah, Rob, sure. Anytime, man. That was great.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, man.
You too.
There you have it, Met fans. Joe DeMayo, SNY Writer. That's So Mets podcast, breaking down all the Mets top 10 prospects. Great analysis that he gave for each and every prospect. You saw the prospect he chose from 11 to 20, Joel Diaz, who he thinks can break the top 10 very, very shortly. And also my pick from 11 to 20, Jalen Palmer, who I think has a lot of upside, and I would not be surprised to see him break the top 10 at some point. And also Joe thinks that Joe Espada, in his opinion, who he likes the most to be the Mets manager, but expects Buck Showalter to be the next Mets manager in 2022. So there you have it, guys. The New York Mets top 10 prospect list. Breaking down the analysis. Joe DeMayo, thank you, Joe, for coming on the channel. Hopefully all the Mets fans enjoyed this half-hour video on the Mets prospects. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Great analysis from Joe DeMayo. Thanks, Joe, so much. Thank you for the support, guys. And as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.